Hello friends. A couple of years ago I was studying at my table and suddenly what happened is that the table started shaking. The water bottle that was kept on it, the books, even I was started to, just like everything went into a vibration mode. So what was it? What is that I am talking about? So this was actually an earthquake that has happened a couple of years ago when I was reading at in my room in Delhi. So that incident happened, and similar events like volcanoes, earthquakes, landslides went on happening in one or the other part of the world each day, right? So in this video, in this lecture that is about chapter number 3 of the class 7 NCERT of geography, we will try to understand how these phenomena occur, what are the factors that cause these phenomena, okay, in some detail, right? So let's begin this chapter, our changing earth, right? This chapter begins with a concept called lithosphere, which we have dealt in the previous chapter itself. So the first concept that you have to learn in this chapter is lithosphere. So first let us define this lithosphere, then we will move into the subsequent part of this chapter, okay? So what is lithosphere? So lithosphere is basically, it can be said that uppermost it is the uppermost solid part of earth, okay, that consists of crust and the upper mantle, right? Upper mantle. When I say upper mantle, I mean the asthenosphere, right? Asthenosphere, I mean asthenosphere. And in the previous lecture we have dealt with what does this astheno means. So this astheno means weak. So basically this upper mantle is a weak sphere which is consisting of molten magma, which is consisting of molten material, which is very weak, right? And it is this molten material that erupts out in whenever there is a volcanic eruption that is taking place, right? So let's understand lithosphere. What I have written, this is the uppermost solid part of the earth, uppermost solid part, and it consists of crust and the upper mantle. Let's have a diagram here so as to understand it in a more precise manner. So suppose this is the core of the earth, the innermost part, the core. Then we have the mantle part, and this is the uppermost part of mantle, which is basically in molten form, and it is this part, and after that we have crust. So it is this part of the earth or the upper part of the mantle which we call the asthenosphere, right? It is in molten form, and this crust that we are talking about, from here to here we have the crust. This is brittle in nature, that it can be broken. So what happens that this molten material is at a very high temperature, and since it is molten, it's always in a tendency to move, right? And we will see what happens when volcanic eruptions occur. Up till now, just concentrate on lithosphere. Okay, so this lithosphere is the uppermost solid part that consists of crust and the upper mantle. Now, this lithosphere is not a one single piece of what we call the solid part. This is not just a uniform single piece. It is basically broken into, if you see, it is broken into many smaller fragments. Not many, it is broken into smaller fragments which we call the lithospheric plates, right? Or we also called it the plutonic plates. We also call it plutonic plates. So when we talk about lithosphere, this lithosphere is not a single piece of solid part. This is not a single piece of solid slab. Basically, this is broken into many smaller fragments, and these smaller fragments are called lithospheric plates or plutonic plates. So right, so what are these lithospheric plates? These lithospheric plates are actually a smaller part of this lithosphere. Right, suppose I am saying about lithosphere. So this whole crust and if we draw this diagram in some flat manner, we will find that this is the uppermost part of mantle, that is we are talking about as asthenosphere, and then we have crust here. So this crust, and suppose this is, here is the soil layer that is here, soil, mountains and rivers, all these things are upon the crust, right? So suppose this crust is broken into many smaller plates that we call the plutonic plates or lithospheric plates, and these plates are not something which is always static. These plates are always in movement with respect to each other. These plates are always in movement or in motion with respect to each other, and that is what we call the Earth's movement. So these lithospheric plates are always in motion with respect to each other, right? They are always in motion with respect to each other. And why they are always in motion? Because they basically float on molten magma. And when I say molten magma, I mean this asthenosphere. This asthenosphere is liquid part, and whenever, and you know, the crust is less denser than the mantle. We have already discussed that in the previous video. So when the crust is lesser denser than the mantle, what will happen? What happens when you put like a plastic ball on water? What happens is, does it submerges into the water? No, it simply floats on the water. Why? Because it is less denser than the water. So in the same way, this lithospheric plates tend to float on this this asthenosphere or the molten magma. Okay, that is why I am saying that these are always in motion with respect to each other, because they basically float on molten magma. And this floating and this movement of lithospheric plates, this movement of lithospheric plates is what we call the earth movement. So in this chapter, whenever we refer this earth movement, we are not talking about the rotation and the revolution of the earth that is taking place. That is altogether a different concept. Here we are talking about, whenever we call the earth movement, we are talking about this movement of lithospheric plates, and that is basically because they lie on molten magma, and also basically because this lithospheric plates or the lithospheric part or the crust part that we have is less denser than the molten part, that is this mantle part. That is why it tends to float, right? So this is the movement that is we are going to discuss in this our changing earth chapter, right? So this movement of earth's plate tends to bring out so many changes on the earth. This movement of earth plates with respect to each other causes so many changes, or have caused so many changes on the earth's surface. The earth's surface which you see today was not the same millions of years ago, and it will not remain the same after millions of years ago in future. So there is a constant amount of changing that is taking place on the earth's surface. There are volcanic eruptions taking place every day, here and now. Means in some part of the earth you always come across the news about volcanic eruptions that is taking place. You always come across news about earthquakes that have hit some part of the earth, right? So earth is not a static part. It is always, it's always went on changing, right? So in this chapter we are going to discuss about some forces that causes the changing that we basically observe on the earth. Okay, so just give me some few seconds. There are some technical problem that is taking place. Okay, just fix it. Let me fix it. Okay. Okay. So now we will try to understand the two basic type of forces that are operating on this lithosphere or beneath the earth. Okay, two types of forces that will come across that causes changes on the earth. So we have understood the earth movement. Now we will understand what causes changes on the earth. As I have already mentioned that this earth is not like a static plate. There are always some or the other form of changes or the other form of movement that is changing the landscape on the earth. What you see the desert in Rajasthan today, that was a millions of years ago or a billions of years ago, that was basically a sea. What you see the Arabian Peninsula, that is a desert, huge desert, but actually millions of years ago that was not a desert, that was under the sea, and that is why we found so many petroleum and oil reserves there. So of course that is altogether different topic that we need not to go into. So let's start with the forces that are causing on the earth. Let's take me a quick reminder of what we have to study. So okay, earth movement. After that we have to study about the forces that are on the earth. Forces causing earth movement, right? Or forces causing changing on the earth. Changing on the earth. My dear friends, what you see Himalayas today, a millions of years ago there was no Himalaya there. So what has caused appearance of Himalaya there? There must have been some amount of forces or some amount of phenomena that has taken place that caused a folding of mountain like Himalaya. So these are the forces that we are going to deal with. So when we talk about forces that causes changing on the earth, that causes changes on the earth's landscape, we are basically going to deal with two types of forces, right? Two types of forces that we are going to discuss here. The first one is the endogenic forces, right? We are first going to talk about endogenic forces, and then we have second category of forces that are called exogenic forces, right? And now the name of this forces itself suggests you that this is endo. Endo means something that is taking place interior of the earth. So this is a force that is taking place inside the earth, right? That is taking place inside the earth. And this is exo. Exo means exterior. So this is something which is taking place on the surface of the earth. See, force, F means force, that is happening, or forces that is acting on the surface of the earth. So just remember this term, surface of the earth. Just remember these two terms, exo, and then we have endo. Endo means something which is taking place inside, and exo, which is taking place above the earth. So that is on the surface. So this is something on that is taking place on the surface of the earth. Now in this video we are going to restrict ourselves to endogenic forces, because if we will try to cover a whole thing in a single video, we may get exhausted a little, right? So just be concentrate on this endogenic force. Two type of forces again within endogenic force. The first is a type of faster type of forces. They are type of quick sudden forces, right? So these are like sudden forces. For example, earthquake. If you have ever come across this phenomena or the incident of earthquake that has happened anywhere in the world, you will find that this earthquake doesn't last for many minutes or hours or a month. It just happens for few seconds, and within few seconds it causes a lots of damages, right? So it is something which doesn't occurs for a very long time. It causes within a second, within seconds. Okay. Then we have volcanoes. So volcanic eruptions also is something which doesn't go on happening for years. It is also type of sudden force. What happens is that magma strikes the crust and it comes out. This is the phenomenon of volcano. Then we have landslide, which is again a sudden type of force. And when we talk about the second type of force that we have within this endogenic force is that we call the mountain building force, right? A force that takes a very long period of time to occur. For example, I was talking about the formation of Himalayas. Himalaya was something which was not formed overnight, right? It takes millions of years to form Himalayas. It was basically this Indo-Australian plate that was striking the Eurasian plate, and then occurs the folding. And this Himalayas, when we talk about, this is something which is still in the process of formation. The formation of Himalaya is still not completed. So that is why we call it some type of slow force. Some type of slow force that is happening here, right? This is something that is happening here. It takes millions of years ago. It occurs for millions of years, right? Millions of years. For example, we talk about the formation of Himalayas. This is the best example we have. And also when we talk about the difference between the sudden force and the slow force, one is of course the name itself suggests sudden and slow. That is, it takes just within few seconds it happens, and it takes millions of years ago. There is another very concrete difference that is there, and that is this sudden force causes changes on the earth, but not on a very large scale. It causes changes but not on a very large scale within the country itself or within the city. Suppose earthquake has caused in USA, will it has any impact on India? Negligible amount of impact we will face in India, right? Or if suppose there is something earthquake has happened in Delhi, will you even feel it in Bengaluru? Very rare chance. That is the enormity of this earthquake happening in Delhi and impacts are felt in Bengaluru, the chances are very minimal, right? That is why this type of forces, and when we call this slow force, this force is basically, this has a technical term that is called diastrophic force, right? Diastrophic force. Diastrophic force. These are the forces that have impact on limited area. Impact on limited area, right? But these diastrophic forces have impact on the entire continent. So these can impacts, it can impacts entire continent, right? The formation of Himalaya was something that has not impacted only India, that has impacted the whole Asian continent, the whole, you know, the Russia, the China, everybody, every country has got impacted. So it has an overall impact on the whole continent, right? So these are the two types of forces that we have to study. These are actually continental type of, they have continental type of impact. So these are also sometimes called as like mountain building force or a pyrogenic, erogenic, this type of forces that you do not have to read in this chapter or in this class, right? We will go into great detail when we will be reading or studying in higher class, right? Now limit ourselves, let's limit ourselves in this three things, that is earthquake and volcano. Landslides you do not have to study, but okay, if you want to know you can comment, I will reply you. So earthquake and volcano, these are the two sudden forces that we are going to discuss here, right? Then we will have a break and then we will switch to this diastrophic forces, or this the forces that cause a great amount of impact, right? So let's discuss this endogenic forces first. What are these endogenic forces? So these are sudden forces that causes a limited impact, right? These are sudden forces that causes a limited impact, and that the occurrence of these forces are also for a very limited period of time, that is for a period of time in terms of seconds or like anything. Okay, so when we talk about this slow movement, first let's talk about earthquake. What is this earthquake? Let's define it. So these are basically, these are the vibrations on the earth, vibrations on the earth that is caused due to movement of lithospheric plates, right? So these are actually the vibrations we have already talked about in the beginning of this chapter, that I was reading in Delhi. It's a real incident that has happened. I was reading in the room and suddenly the table starts shaking, right? So it's a type of vibrations. You always observe your mobile vibrating whenever you study in room or anywhere, for example library. You always have to, you know, take your mobile in vibration mode. So similar type of situations happen on the earth. There are some vibrations that people feel, and these are the vibrations that are caused due to the movement of lithospheric plates, and this is this vibration that we call the earthquake. Okay, so what is the vibration? How does this happen? So I have already talked about lithospheric plates are always in motion with respect to each other. So suppose two type of plates are here. So these two type of plates may either come together, come close to each other. So this is one type of movement. Then these two plates can also go far away from each other. This is second type of movement. Then there can be also third type of movement in which these plates neither come closer nor go away. This actually have this type of movement. So basically they slide past each other. So this is a third type of movement. In all the three type of movements we feel these vibrations on the earth. What happens is that, suppose here you are living, here is some amount of soil and then buildings are there and everything is there. Suppose what happens is that here are the plates. Suppose this is one lithospheric plate. Lithospheric plates are not regular, they are irregular solid slab. Irregular, when I say it does not have a definite shape. It's not a rectangular or a square like shape. It's a irregular type of shape. Okay, so when these two plates were like placing there, what happens after some time, that suppose this is the soil, and what happens is that these two plates collide with each other, you know, they tend to collide. And what happens with this point of interaction, a lot of energy will be released, and this energy travel across the body of the earth in the form of wave. Now when this wave will strike on the ground of the earth, this, suppose this is the place where this wave has struck the ground. First understand what is this point called. The point where the amount of energy has been released, this point is called focus of the earthquake. So this is called the focus of the earthquake. So this is the point where a vast amount of energy has released due to interaction of plates. And a point just above this focus, a point which is just above this focus on the ground, where this energy or where the vibrations, or suppose this energy is traveling through wave and this wave strike the ground on this point. So this point is called epicenter. And it is through epicenter that the energy on the surface of the earth starts moving. And because of this energy that is released on the ground, we come across the vibrations of the buildings, the shaking of the buildings, and this shaking of buildings or this energy that has been released through the epicenter, that causes a huge amount of disruptions, a damage of building, a damage of bridge or any infrastructure for that matter. So these 2 points you have to understand, focus and epicenter, right? So this type of, now energy here is traveling through waves. So in this chapter you have been introduced with some types of waves. So this, what are these types of waves that we have to understand here? Okay, so these are the waves because of which the energy travels across. So suppose this is the earth, right, and this is the core, and suppose this is the mental part, and we have this asthenosphere which is molten again, and here we have this, suppose there are 2 plates that are colliding with each other here, right? So this point is called focus, and now a large amount of energy will be released here. So how this energy will move? This energy will move through this wave, and this wave will travel all across the earth, right? So when we talk about waves, you can see there are 2 types of waves we will see. So let's clean some part of the board so that we can have clear understanding, because picture matters a lot when we try to understand earthquake, okay, or any geographical phenomena. If you try to understand, for that you have to have a clear conceptual clarity on the diagram. So this is the place which is we call focus, and these are the waves that are traveling. So these are the waves that are traveling beneath the surface of the earth. They do not have still came over the earth. So these are the waves that, so when we talk about waves, when we call the earthquake waves, these earthquake waves are of 2 types. The first is the body waves, right, and then we have the surface waves. These surface waves are also called L waves or love waves, okay, just this is one and the same. And the body waves are such waves which travels through the body of the earth, And when I say the body of the earth, what does it mean? What does it mean by traveling through body of the earth? It means it will pass through first the crust, the mantle, and also the core, and that depends on the nature of the wave. It will pass through the core or not, or it will pass through the molten part or not, because we have some waves which travel only through solid part. So these are the waves that travels beneath the earth's surface, that it has not still come above the earth, it is still traveling beneath the earth. So these type of waves are called body waves. They travel through the body of the earth, that is inside the earth. Just remember one word, inside. They travel inside the earth. And surface waves, as the name itself suggests, these are the waves that travel on the surface of the earth. surface of the earth. Right. Now when we talk about body waves, we have understood that these are the waves that travel beneath the surface of the earth. Now when we talk about body waves, we have two types of body waves. The first is called primary waves, or simply P waves. And then we have a secondary wave, that is simply called S wave. That is simply we call S wave. Let's clear it also so that we can have some amount of clarity again. We require some amount of clarity here. Okay, so what are primary waves and what are secondary waves? Primary waves are those waves which start traveling as soon as this energy is released. So as soon as, let's have a bigger diagram. So as soon as suppose this is the, and here this energy has been released. So this primary wave will start occurring as soon as this incident has happened or this interaction between two plates have happened. Okay, so these are the waves that start moving, or something that they emerges. These are the waves that emerges immediately after earthquake happens, right? Immediately after earthquake happens. So these are the waves that are, that emerges immediately after the earthquake has happened. So these are the waves that will be first observed. Okay, so these are the waves that will first strike the surface, because this is the first to release, and then this primary wave is followed by another wave that is called secondary wave. So these are the waves that comes with, or that emerges with some time lag. And this time lag, when I say this time lag, is basically the difference in time between the happening of the earthquake and the release of this wave. Okay, so primary waves are basically waves which are first to be observed on the earth, and secondary waves comes with some time lag, right? So this is two basic difference, right? So these are the primary waves and secondary waves. Also there is a little another difference that we have. Primary waves when travel, suppose this was the rock and these are the inner particles that were in the rocks. So when the primary waves will hit this rock, what will happen? The particles of this rock will start moving in horizontal direction. Okay, so there will be a to and fro motion. To and fro motion will be there, right? So there will be a type of to and fro motion. When I say to and fro motion, what will happen? That these particles will start to come closer to each other, right? Then again they will expand. So there is contraction, there is expansion. So there is always this type of movements happening, and this all will happen in horizontal direction. So primary wave, when a strike a rock structure, the particles will move in horizontal direction. So this movement is called to and fro motion. Okay, or squeezing and then expansion happens. So this type of waves in which this type of movement of particles take place are called longitudinal waves. So that is why we call primary waves as longitudinal waves. But when we talk about secondary waves, what will happen? That if these are the particles in the rock and secondary waves has hit here, so suppose secondary waves have hit here, what will happen? The rock will get deformed, it will be like this, right? And the particles, what happens? They have a vertical type of movement taking place. and that is because of this type of movement that is taking place. There is a formation of crust and a trough. So this type of movement is called transverse motion, and that is why these are waves are called transverse waves. So it is like this type of movement that takes place, and that is why when this type of movement in rock structure takes place, the rocks get deformed, and that is why we call secondary waves are more destructive and more dangerous than the primary waves. Okay, this is the basic difference that you have to understand. One is longitudinal, in which the particles move in a manner of horizontal motion, in a manner of squeezing and expansion, and in this you will see that particles are moving vertically. So it is a type of wavy type of motion. That is why this rock will get deformed like this. Okay, these are the two basic differences between these two waves. Okay, then we have the surface wave, which is basically nothing but the waves that travel on the surface of the earth. Whenever these primary waves and secondary waves strike the surface or strike the crust, then energy is released above the earth's surface, and that we call the surface waves. And this is because of these surface waves, that is, we observe the shaking of buildings and the destruction of infrastructures like roads, bridges, buildings, and so on and so forth, right? Now, when it comes to the earthquake measuring, first thing you have to understand that the earthquakes are something which are unpredictable, because this is a phenomena that is happening beneath the earth's surface. There are no scientific instruments that can predict earthquake in advance. No scientific instrument exists on the earth that can say that, oh, okay, here in this part of the world, an earthquake is going to happen. Suppose this is Africa, so no one can say that in this part of Africa, earthquake is going to happen. Or suppose this is India, so no instrument we have that can say that in this part of Himalayan region, an earthquake is going to hit. One month ago, you might across whenever you see the television channels, they say that okay, after 4 or 5 days a cyclone is going to come or hit the coast of Bengal or like Maharashtra. But have you ever come across this type of news that okay, after 4 days an earthquake is going to happen in Delhi? No, because these are basically unpredictable. No one can predict when and where this is going to happen. But of course, if we do not have any scientific instrument, we have some natural indicators of earthquake. Natural indicators. What are these natural indicators? These are some animals like fishes, okay, wild animals, or even sometimes birds also. They tend to show some different type of behavior. You will observe some abnormality in their behavior. Snakes will come out of holes. The fishes will start to move in a very random type of directions. Wild animals will start to jump in a very abnormal type of way. So if these animals start to show this type of behavior, people that who are traditionally living in wild areas, they tend to understand that there is something that is going to happen. Okay, so these are the natural indicators that we have. Okay, but now understand how we measure earthquake. So measuring of earthquake is something we have to understand. How do we measure earthquake? So we have an instrument called seismograph, and this is through this instrument that we measure earthquake. Right, it is through this instrument that we tend to measure earthquake. Two types of scales we have to measure earthquake. One is the Richter scale, which basically tends to measure the magnitude, and then we have the Mercalli scale, which tends to measure the intensity of the earthquake. When we say what is difference between these two scales, one is magnitude and the other is one measures magnitude and the other measures intensity. When we say magnitude, it means it will measure the amount of energy that has been released, amount of energy, okay, that has released because of occurrence of this earthquake. And when we see intensity, we simply measures how much destruction it has caused. Okay, we simply see how much how much destructions that have been caused because of this earthquake or a particular earthquake. So it's a measurement of destruction, and it is basically a measurement of energy that has been released because of occurrence of earthquake. So this was all about earthquake. Unpredictable vibrations on the earth, primary waves, secondary waves, surface waves, body waves. These are all the things that we need to understand here. Then we understand about measuring of earthquakes. Okay. So a very similar phenomena, not similar, but this was a sudden force. So again we have another sudden force that we have to study, and that is the volcanoes. What are volcanoes? So when we talk about volcanoes are something which is also sudden type of thing, which is also a sudden phenomena and very easy to understand, not much complicated than the earthquake, right? So volcanoes are basically conduit on earth, yeah, in the crust through which molten magma comes out of Earth's interior, right? So these are volcanoes are basically the place where this type of incident occurs when this magma tends to come out on the Earth's from the Earth's interior on the Earth's surface, right? So it's basically a conduit. What is this conduit, right? Okay, let's understand. Suppose this is the molten magma we have. This is the molten magma we have, right? And then we have a core which is very high temperature and pressure here, and then we have some amount of lithospheric plates that is moving here and there, like these are the plates, and above which we suppose this is soil and all these things, and above which we live. What happens is that suppose these are the soils, so here we live. What happens is that this magma is always in, because of the heat, and also heat is also very much high, the temperature is very much high even here, but even at core the temperature is further higher. So what happens is that this molten magma is always in type of motion. What you observe when you see the boiling water? The water goes up, then again it's come down, then again it's get heated, then it's again get cooled, and this process is again happening. So the magma here tends to go up, and it's always in a tendency to come out of the Earth's surface. It always hits this lithospheric plates. What happens whenever it finds some way out? Whenever this magma has find a way to come out, it will come out on the Earth's surface, right? In this way, it will come out on the Earth's surface in this way, and that is this that we call volcano has occurred. Okay, so when this is lying inside the Earth, we call it magma, and when this magma comes out of the Earth's surface, it is called lava. So same magma when come out of the Earth's surface is called lava. Okay, it might happen that it doesn't simply find a gap between these two plates. It might also happen that after continuous strike, this magma is always hitting this lithospheric plate part. What happens after some time? A type of crack happens, a type of crack that appears in between, within this lithospheric plate. And when this crack will appear, what will happen? This magma will enter here, and after this magma will enter here, the crack will further get widened. So this crack will further get widened and the magma will erupt out. Okay, so magma when comes out, this is called lava. And now you can see whenever it happens, there is a pipe like a structure that is always getting formed here, a pipe like a structure that we get formed here. This pipe like a structure is called vent, or what we call, yes, this is called vent, right? Conduit like a structure is called vent, and here is a mouth like a structure that gets formed, from which lava will come out through this pipe like. This mouth is called crater, right? So even if you do not mention it, it will be okay, because you just have to understand how this volcano occurs. So here is magma that is lying, and this is always in a tendency to hit this lithospheric plate, and whenever it gets chance to come out of the earth's surface, whenever it gets a lithospheric plate which is not so stronger that can oppose its movement, it simply comes out on the earth's surface, and that we see as lava, and that is called the volcano, right? So these are basic two things, sudden movements that we have to study: volcano and the earthquake. Okay, so this earthquake and volcanoes of course causes so many changes on the earth's surface. Okay, suppose there is an earthquake and it will suddenly cause a huge amount of destructions. It will cause to fall the buildings, it will cause to fall the bridges. So this type of happenings you will come across whenever you see news in one part of the world or the another. Then we have volcanic eruptions that are also taking place, sometimes in Africa, sometimes in like Guatemala in South America. So this type of slow movements or slow happenings you will come across whenever you see news channels, right? So these are the two basic endogenic forces that we have to study. In the next video after this break, we will come to know about diastrophic forces, right? And then we will see deposition, weathering, and deposition, weathering, transportation, and the erosional activities or the type of landforms that are caused by river, the wind, then glaciers. Okay, so just take some amount of time, take a break so that we can get re-energized. Okay.